Millionaire abandons pregnant girlfriend. 10 years later. Airport encounter changes everything. Andrew Thompson strode through Chicago O'Hare International Airport, his designer shoes clicking against the polished floor. At 38, he was the picture of success, tailored suit, expensive watch, and an air of confidence that came from building a multimillion-dollar tech company from the ground up. He was so focused on reaching his gate for a flight to a crucial business meeting that he almost missed them. Almost. A familiar laugh cut through the airport's din, stopping Andrew in his tracks. He turned, his heart pounding, and saw her, Sarah. Her chestnut hair was shorter now, but her smile was just as radiant as he remembered. And next to her, holding her hand, was a boy of about 10. Ethan.
Andrew,
The son he had never met. As he watched, when Sarah told him she was pregnant, he panicked. He saw his dreams of success slipping away, replaced by the mundane responsibilities of fatherhood. So he made a choice that had haunted him ever since. He left. Now, watching Sarah and Ethan laugh together, the weight of that decision crashed down on him. What had he missed? First steps, first words, first day of school, a decade of moments he could never get back. Before he could process his emotions, Sarah looked up and their eyes met. The smile vanished from her face, replaced by a look of shock and then anger. How could he possibly explain or justify his actions? As Sarah and Ethan disappeared into the crowd, Andrew made a split-second decision. He couldn't let this opportunity slip away. He had to try to make things right, no matter how difficult it might be. Abandoning his plans, he rushed after them, his heart pounding with each step. This chance encounter could change everything, if only he could find the right words. "Sarah, wait!" Andrew called out, his voice barely audible over the airport's cacophony. Sarah froze, her grip on Ethan's hand tightening. Slowly, she turned to face Andrew, her expression a mix of disbelief and fury. "How dare you?" she hissed, keeping her voice low to avoid drawing attention. "How dare you approach us after all this time?" Andrew held up his hands in a placating gesture. "Please, Sarah, I just want to talk." Ethan looked between them, confusion evident on his young face. "Mom, who is this?" Sarah's jaw clenched. "No one, sweetie. Let's go." But Andrew couldn't let them walk away. Not again. "Ethan," he said softly, his voice cracking with emotion. I'm your father." The boy's eyes widened, and he looked to his mother for confirmation. Sarah's face crumpled, tears welling in her eyes. "Not here," she said firmly. "Not like this." Andrew nodded, understanding the delicacy of the situation. "Can we go somewhere to talk? Please, Sarah. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you for a chance." After a moment of tense silence, Sarah nodded curtly. "Fine. There's a coffee shop near our gate. You have 10 minutes. As they walked to the cafe, Andrew's mind raced. How could he possibly explain 10 years of absence in 10 minutes? How could he make them understand the regret that had eaten away at him for a decade? They settled into a quiet corner of the bustling coffee shop, Ethan sandwiched protectively between Sarah and the wall. Andrew sat across from them, his hands shaking slightly as he clasped them on the table. "I know nothing I can say will make up for what I've done," Andrew began, his voice low and filled with remorse. "But I want you both to know that leaving was the biggest mistake of my life. Not a day has gone by that I haven't thought about you, wondered about you." Sarah's eyes flashed with anger. "And yet you never reached out, never sent a birthday card, never paid a dime in child support. You just vanished, Andrew. Do you have any idea what that did to us?" Andrew winced, feeling the full weight of his actions. "I was a coward," he admitted. "I told myself I was doing what was best for everyone, that you'd be better off without me. But the truth is I was scared. Scared of responsibility. Scared of failing as a father." Ethan, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Did you not want me?" His voice was small, vulnerable, and it broke Andrew's heart. "No, Ethan, that's not it at all," Andrew said quickly, fighting back tears. I was young and stupid. I thought I needed to chase success and money to be happy. But I was wrong. So wrong. And I've regretted it every day since. Sarah put her arm around Ethan, pulling him close. We've done just fine without you, she said, her tone icy. Ethan is an amazing boy, and he's grown up surrounded by love. Andrew nodded, a lump forming in his throat. I can see that. You've done an incredible job, Sarah. I know I have no right to ask this, but I want to be part of Ethan's life. If you'll let me. Sarah's eyes narrowed. And why should we trust you now? How do we know you won't just disappear again when things get tough? It was a fair question, and one Andrew had anticipated. He took a deep breath before responding. I know words aren't enough. I'm prepared to prove myself in whatever way you deem appropriate. I'll pay back child support with interest. I'll agree to supervised visits. Whatever it takes to show you I'm serious about this. Ethan looked up at his mother, his expression a mix of hope and uncertainty. Mom, can I get to know him? Sarah's face softened as she looked at her son. After a moment of internal struggle, she sighed. That's up to you, sweetie. But Andrew, she turned back to him, her gaze steely. If you hurt him, if you disappoint him in any way, that's it. You're out of our lives for good. Understood. Andrew nodded solemnly. I understand. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for giving me this chance. I promise I won't let either of you down. As their allotted 10 minutes came to an end, Andrew reluctantly stood. I have a flight to catch, he said, suddenly remembering his business meeting. It seems so insignificant now. But can we exchange contact information? I'd like to set up a proper meeting on your terms. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. They exchanged numbers and Andrew knelt down to Ethan's eye level. It was wonderful to meet you, Ethan. I hope we can get to know each other better soon. Ethan gave a small smile and nodded. As Andrew walked away, he felt a mix of emotions: relief at having made contact, guilt over the pain he'd caused, and a glimmer of hope for the future. Little did he know, this chance encounter was just the beginning of a challenging journey that would test his commitment, force him to confront his past, and ultimately redefine his understanding of success and happiness. In the weeks following the airport encounter, Andrew's life took a dramatic turn. He postponed his business trip, delegated more responsibilities at work, and focused all his energy on proving his commitment to Ethan and Sarah. Their first official meeting was at a neutral location, a park near Sarah and Ethan's home. Andrew arrived early, his stomach in knots. He watched as they approached, Ethan's excitement evident in his bouncing steps, while Sarah's face remained guarded. Hi, Andrew said, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you for coming. Ethan looked up at him with curious eyes. Mom says you build computers. Is that true? Andrew smiled, grateful for the easy opening. That's right. My company develops software for smartphones and tablets. Do you like technology? Ethan's face lit up. I love it. I want to be a game developer when I grow up. As they talked, Andrew felt a connection forming with his son. Ethan's enthusiasm for technology reminded Andrew of himself at that age, and he found himself sharing stories of his early days in coding and app development. Sarah watched their interaction closely, her expression softening slightly as she saw Ethan's genuine interest. Over the next few months, Andrew made good on his promises. He set up a substantial trust fund for Ethan's education and future, backdated child support payments with interest, and never missed a scheduled visit. He attended Ethan's school science fair, cheered at his soccer games, and even volunteered to chaperone a class field trip. But rebuilding trust was not without its challenges. Sarah remained wary, and rightfully so. One day, after a particularly successful outing with Ethan, she pulled Andrew aside. I appreciate the effort you're making, she said, her voice low. But I need to know, why now? What changed? Andrew took a deep breath, knowing honesty was crucial. Seeing you both at the airport, it was like a wake-up call. I realized how empty my life had been, despite all the success. I've achieved everything I thought I wanted, but it meant nothing without the people who matter most. Sarah studied him for a moment before responding. I want to believe you, Andrew, for Ethan's sake. But you hurt us deeply. It's going to take more than a few months to undo that damage. Andrew nodded solemnly. I know, and I'm prepared to spend the rest of my life making it up to both of you, if that's what it takes. As autumn turned to winter, Andrew's commitment never wavered. He rearranged his work schedule to be more present, even considering opening a branch of his company in Chicago to be closer to Ethan. However, this decision brought its own set of complications. One chilly December evening, as Andrew was leaving his temporary Chicago office, he ran into a familiar face, Vanessa, his former partner both in business and in life. She had been instrumental in the early days of his company, but had left to pursue her own ventures when their relationship soured. Andrew Thompson, she said, her voice a mix of surprise and amusement. I heard rumors you were back in town. What brings the prodigal son home? Andrew hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. Personal reasons. He said finally, I'm reconnecting with family. Vanessa's eyebrows shot up. Family? Last I checked, you were allergic to anything resembling commitment. Don't tell me the great Andrew Thompson has finally settled down. Her words stung, reminding Andrew of the person he used to be. People change, Vanessa. I've realized there are more important things in life than just business success. Vanessa studied him for a moment, then smiled. Well, color me intrigued. How about we grab a drink and catch up properly? For old time's sake. Andrew hesitated. He had been so focused on Ethan and Sarah that he hadn't considered how his past might complicate his present. But before he could formulate a response, his phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Ethan's school play is tonight. He was hoping you'd make it. Andrew felt a surge of warmth, followed quickly by resolve. I'm sorry, Vanessa, he said, pocketing his phone. I have a prior commitment. It was good seeing you, though. As he hurried to his car, Andrew felt a mix of emotions. Pride at choosing his son over his past, but also a nagging worry. How many more ghosts from his former life would resurface? And how would they affect his fragile new relationship with Ethan and Sarah? As Christmas approached, Andrew found himself more excited about the holiday than he had been in years. He had always viewed Christmas as just another day, often working through it to get ahead. But this year was different. Sarah had agreed, albeit hesitantly, to let Andrew join them for Christmas Eve dinner. It would be his first real family Christmas, and he was determined to make it special. He arrived at Sarah's modest but warmly decorated home, arms laden with carefully chosen gifts. Ethan greeted him with an enthusiastic hug, a gesture that still caught Andrew off guard, but filled him with joy every time. Dad, you made it, Ethan exclaimed, his eyes shining with excitement. The word Dad still sent a thrill through Andrew, a reminder of the role he was slowly earning. Sarah appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on an apron. Come in, Andrew. Dinner's almost ready. The house was filled with the warm sense of roasting turkey and cinnamon. A modestly decorated Christmas tree stood in the corner, its lights twinkling merrily. Andrew felt a pang of regret for all the Christmases he had missed. As they sat down to dinner, Andrew marveled at the comfortable domesticity of it all. Sarah had prepared a feast, and Ethan chattered excitedly about his expectations for Santa's visit. Andrew found himself relaxing, drawn into the warmth of family life he had so long denied himself. After dinner, as they gathered around the tree to exchange gifts, Andrew handed Ethan a small, wrapped box. This is something special, he said softly. I hope you like it. Ethan tore open the wrapping to reveal a sleek smartwatch. His eyes widened in awe. Wow, is this the new Tech Pro X1000? Andrew nodded, smiling. It is, but that's not all. Look at the back. Ethan turned the watch over to find an engraving. To Ethan, my greatest creation. Love, Dad. Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes as he threw his arms around Andrew. Thank you, Dad. I love it. Sarah watched the scene unfold, her own eyes glistening. When Ethan had calmed down, She cleared her throat. "Andrew, we have something for you too." She handed him a flat, rectangular package. Andrew unwrapped it carefully to find a framed photo collage. It was filled with pictures of Ethan throughout the years. His first steps, first day of school, birthdays, and recent photos of the three of them together. "We thought you might like to have some of the memories you missed," Sarah explained softly. Andrew stared at the gift, overwhelmed by emotion. Thank you, both of you. This means more to me than you can know." As the evening wound down, Andrew helped Sarah clean up while Ethan played with his new watch. In the kitchen, away from Ethan's ears, Sarah turned to Andrew. "You've really changed," she said, her voice quiet but sincere. "I didn't think it was possible, but I'm glad you're here, Andrew, for Ethan's sake and, well, it's good to see this side of you." Andrew felt a warmth spread through his chest. "Thank you, Sarah, for giving me this chance. I promise I won't waste it." As he left that night, Andrew felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in years. He had a family, a purpose beyond work and wealth. He was determined to nurture this precious gift he had been given. The new year brought with it a fresh set of challenges for Andrew. His extended stay in Chicago was raising eyebrows at his company's headquarters in San Francisco. Shareholders were getting restless, and his board of directors was demanding answers. One particularly tense video conference left Andrew feeling drained. His CFO, Marcus, didn't mince words. "Andrew, we need you back here. The company is starting to suffer from your absence. What's going on in Chicago that's so important?" Andrew hesitated. He hadn't told anyone at work about Ethan yet, unsure of how to navigate this new aspect of his life. "It's personal, Marcus. Family matters." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Family? Since when do you have family obligations?" "Look, whatever it is, wrap it up. We need our CEO back at the helm." After ending the call, Andrew sat back in his chair, conflicted. He had worked hard to build his company, and he took pride in its success. But for the first time, his professional life was at odds with his personal life. That evening, he had plans to attend Ethan's science club presentation at school. As he watched his son confidently explain his project on renewable energy, Andrew felt a surge of pride. This, he realized, was what truly mattered. After the presentation, as they walked to the car, Ethan looked up at Andrew. "Dad, are you going to stay in Chicago? Mom said you might have to go back to San Francisco soon." Andrew felt a pang in his chest. He knelt down to Ethan's level, looking into his son's worried eyes. "I'm doing everything I can to stay here, buddy. My work in San Francisco is important, but you're more important. I'm trying to figure out how to balance both." Ethan nodded, his face serious. Andrew couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, his mind racing with possibilities. By morning, he had made a decision. He called an emergency board meeting via video conference. "I have a proposal," Andrew announced to the surprised faces on his screen. "I want to open a major branch of our operations here in Chicago. We've been talking about expanding our Midwest presence for years. This is the perfect opportunity." The board members exchanged glances. Marcus spoke up. "Andrew, this is sudden. What's really going on?" Andrew took a deep breath. "I have a son here in Chicago. A 10-year-old boy I'm just getting to know. I won't abandon him again. This move will allow me to be present for my family while still leading the company." There was a moment of stunned silence, followed by a flurry of questions. Andrew answered them all patiently, laying out his plans for the Chicago branch and how he would split his time. After hours of discussion and negotiation, the board reluctantly agreed to a trial period. Andrew would have 6 months to prove that he could manage both his family responsibilities and the company's needs. Relieved but exhausted, Andrew called Sarah to share the news. Her response was cautiously optimistic. "That's a big step, Andrew. Are you sure about this?" "I've never been more sure of anything," he replied firmly. "I meant what I said at Christmas. I'm not wasting this chance." As winter melted into spring, Andrew threw himself into his dual roles of father and CEO with equal fervor. He worked tirelessly to set up the Chicago office, flying back and forth to San Francisco as needed. At the same time, he never missed a soccer game, a parent-teacher conference, or a family dinner with Ethan and Sarah. But the strain was beginning to show. Dark circles appeared under Andrew's eyes, and he found himself constantly checking his phone, even during precious moments with Ethan. One Saturday afternoon, as they were building a model rocket in the backyard, Andrew's phone buzzed for the dozenth time. He glanced at it, frowning at an urgent email from Marcus. "Dad?" Ethan's voice pulled him back to the present. "You're not listening again." Andrew looked up to see disappointment in his son's eyes. It was a look he was becoming all too familiar with, the same look Sarah gave him when he zoned out during conversations, distracted by work concerns. "I'm sorry, buddy," Andrew said, putting his phone away. "Where were we?" But the moment was gone. Ethan shrugged, his enthusiasm deflated. "It's okay. We can finish later. I know you're busy." The words hit Andrew like a punch to the gut. This was exactly what he had been trying to avoid, making Ethan feel secondary, unimportant. That evening, after Ethan had gone to bed, Sarah confronted Andrew in the kitchen. "This isn't working, Andrew," she said softly. "You're stretching yourself too thin. Something has to give." Andrew ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in his voice. "I'm trying, Sarah. I'm doing my best to be there for Ethan and keep the company afloat. What more can I do?" Sarah's eyes softened with sympathy. "I know you're trying, but Andrew, you can't have it all. You need to decide what's truly important to you." As Sarah's words sank in, Andrew realized she was right. He had been trying to have it all, to be the perfect father he had failed to be for 10 years, while also maintaining his role as the driven, always available CEO. Something had to give, and he knew in his heart what it needed to be. The next morning, Andrew called an impromptu meeting with his executive team. "I've come to a decision," he announced, his voice steady despite the butterflies in his stomach. "I'm stepping down as CEO." A shocked silence fell over the room, both in person and on the video screens. Marcus was the first to speak. "Andrew, think about this. The company needs you." Andrew shook his head. "The company needs a leader who can give it 100%. That's not me anymore. My priorities have changed." He took a deep breath before continuing. "I'll stay on as chairman of the board, but it's time for new leadership. Marcus, I'd like you to take over as CEO." The transition wasn't easy. There were long days of meetings, paperwork, and explanations to shareholders. But with each passing day, Andrew felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. When he told Sarah and Ethan about his decision, their reactions were mixed. Sarah was surprised but supportive. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, concern in her eyes. Andrew nodded. "I've never been more sure of anything. This is what I need to do for Ethan, for us, and for myself." Ethan's reaction was more complicated. "But Dad," he said, his brow furrowed, "I don't want you to give up your job because of me. Won't you be sad?" Andrew knelt down to look Ethan in the eye. "Buddy, I'm not giving anything up. I'm gaining something much more valuable, time with you. My job was important, but being your dad is the most important job I'll ever have." Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes as he hugged his father tightly. As summer approached, Andrew found himself settling into a new rhythm of life. He was still involved with the company as chairman, but his days were no longer consumed by constant meetings and urgent decisions. Instead, he found joy in the simple moments, helping Ethan with his homework, cooking dinner with Sarah, and even learning to play soccer, albeit rather clumsily, for impromptu backyard games. One warm evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Sarah turned to Andrew. "You seem different," she said softly, "more at peace." Andrew smiled, realizing she was right. "I am," he replied. "For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Sarah hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "Andrew, I've been thinking. Your lease on the apartment is almost up, isn't it?" Andrew nodded, wondering where she was going with this. Sarah took a deep breath. "Well, I was thinking, maybe it's time you moved in here. Permanently, if you want to, that is. Andrew felt his heart skip a beat. Sarah, are you sure? That's a big step. She smiled, reaching out to take his hand. I'm sure. You've proven yourself, Andrew. You're not the same man who left all those years ago. And Ethan, he needs his father here, full-time. Overwhelmed with emotion, Andrew pulled Sarah into a gentle kiss. Nothing would make me happier, he whispered. As if on cue, Ethan burst out onto the porch, a video game controller in hand. Dad, I finally beat that level you showed me. Want to see? Andrew laughed, standing up and ruffling Ethan's hair. You bet I do, champ. Lead the way. As he followed his son inside, with Sarah's hand in his, Andrew felt a profound sense of contentment. He had spent years chasing success, thinking it would bring him happiness. But now he realized that true success wasn't measured in dollars or stock prices. It was measured in moments like these, in the love of family, in the joy of being present, in the peace of knowing you're exactly where you belong. The road ahead wouldn't always be smooth. There would be challenges, disagreements, and moments of doubt. But Andrew knew that with Sarah and Ethan by his side, he could face anything. He had finally found his way home. 5 years later, the Thompson family gathered in their backyard for Ethan's 15th birthday party. Friends, family, and neighbors mingled as Andrew manned the grill, occasionally stealing glances at Sarah, who was arranging presents on a table nearby. Ethan, now a lanky teenager with his father's eyes and his mother's smile, was showing off his latest tech project to a group of impressed friends. Andrew couldn't help but beam with pride. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, Andrew found a quiet moment with his son. Happy birthday, Ethan, he said, pulling him into a hug. I'm so proud of the young man you're becoming. Ethan hugged him back tightly. Thanks, Dad, for everything. Later that night, as Andrew and Sarah cleaned up, she caught him lost in thought. Penny for your thoughts? She asked, bumping his hip playfully. Andrew smiled, wrapping an arm around her waist. Just thinking about how lucky I am. How different things could have been if I hadn't gotten that second chance. Sarah leaned into him. You didn't just get a second chance, Andrew. You earned it, every day. As they stood there in comfortable silence, Andrew reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From a driven, lonely CEO to a devoted father and husband, he had discovered that true success wasn't found in boardrooms or bank accounts, but in the love of family and the joy of being present for life's precious moments. The story of the Thompson family wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. And for Andrew, Sarah, and Ethan, it was more than enough. It was everything.